Hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about stag. This is stag right here. What is stag? Where does stag come from? Is stag as strong as bone? Is it better than bone? Why is it expensive? How can I tell whether the stuff on my knife is stag? We're going to be talking about all those questions and more. If that is something that interests you, go ahead and check out the video. All right, knife wars in the woods. Sherry's got her Kubi phylum, and she's getting way too close. Stop. All right, welcome back to the fortified castle. Hi to all my viewers. Bonjour, privet, guten tag, hola, ciao, konnichiwa, and good day, mate, to my foreign viewers. And today we're going to be talking about stag. Should be an interesting conversation. And I just have to show my little Zippo lighter that my buddy Kevin gave me, the knife doctor. Love this thing. And we're going to be talking about stag. All right, so as you can see, stag is deer antler. These are the things that grow on the top of the heads of deer species around the world. And we just love to put them on our knife. They look really cool. And because in deer species, these antlers only grow on male deer, and male deer are called stag. That's why we call the stuff on our knife stag, because it is deer antler from male deers. So we call it stag. So that's why we call it stag, but it would be proper to call it deer antler too. So, it is made out of bone. Okay, so that's a question I had from somebody. And it's actually tougher than bone, but not necessarily as hard as bone. So bone is harder, but because stag is a little softer, it's actually tougher. So on an impact test, stag, if you took stag and you took bone and you beat on them, the stag will take 6 times as much abuse as the bone will. The bone is harder, so it'll crack. And the stag is a little softer, more resilient. It'll give a little bit more, and so it's tougher. So it's a very good handle material. So as you can see, all of this stag looks different, including the genuine stag. And stag will range in color. This, you got to remember, this is older stag right here. So this had these for years, and they turn color a little bit in a nice silver color. Oftentimes, this section of the stag will appear almost white in the wild, white to yellow, yellowish, and a little darker down in here. And it's kind of unusual, but you can actually see some brown in here. So there's usually not a lot of brown in stag. You can see how white it is right here. And rarely black. So you'll see brown more than you will see black. And of course, that'll differ a little bit from species to species. This stag in the background is off of elk. Elk has this beautiful silver color to it. And this area right here is called the crown, and that is this area right here on the antler. It's the base of the antler where you get this beautiful rugged type of look. That is inappropriate for a folding knife, but you know, on big handled knives, we like to put that on there. You see it in a lot of German hunting knives where they include the crown onto the knife. you see a lot of color here and a lot of differences in color. And just like in bone, stag is usually colored to one degree or another, and you can see that in this right here. Um, Probably this is dyed, I would say. A lot of times you can see the dye spill over into the white parts. They also can bleach stag, and probably most stag is bleached before they start dyeing it. And that's how you get this color here. But um, this is one that really is probably closest to its natural color right here. It looks to me like it has been colored some, but not very much. You can see that nice silvery look in it, and so that's pretty close to what natural stag is. That handle I showed you before right here, this is pretty close to natural coloring. They may have highlighted these furrows in the stag a little bit, put a little bit of brown color in there, but that's typical. So almost all stag is colored because it looks kind of crappy like this, and if you want it to look beautiful like this, you add a little bit of color to it. This is elk stag here by Bark River. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. Now, how do you tell whether something is genuine stag or bone? And so I really don't have a lot of good examples. I'm going to use this right here. And let's see. Let's try to get this in. When you look at this, you see these little holes in the bone. This is cow bone. You can see the little holes in it. And that is typical and indicative of cow bone, because the bone in cows grows differently than it does in stag. And so stag grows long ways out like this. And so the veins that run through the stag are on the inside. So this is one way you can tell it's genuine stag. When you look at it, you don't see those little tiny holes that you normally would see in bone, but you see this kind of stuff, which is the inside, and it's a long ways type of vein, and you often see it like this on the inside of the stag, because that's where it grows. Most of the veins grow on the inside of the stag, and that's one of the best ways that you can tell bone from stag. Let me see if I can give you another example here. So again, this is cow bone, and you see these little tiny holes here, and it's hard to eliminate those. This has been highly polished and worn down. You can still see the little tiny holes in here, and again, that indicates bone. The other thing is, this is a really old knife right here, dating to the 1800s. And this knife is, you can tell it's yellowing. And if you look at stag, and this is stag from that same period of time, you see how it's brown. And so this is pretty common for stag. It turns a different color. Cow bone will tend to yellow with time. Stag will tend to look brown. Here's a few more examples. This is from the turn of the 20th century. You can see how it's kind of browning out, and has that same kind of hue that this really old stag has. You see how it's browning out there? And this is stag from the 50s, 1950. And you can see how instead of yellowing, let me find that again. Where is my? Instead of yellowing, you can see the difference, how it turns browner. And of course, you can see the natural peaks and furrows of the stag, the irregularity of a stag. I'm going to show you this. So this stag, you can see how it has that natural bend, and that's the bend that you see right there in the stag. It has that natural bend, and that's pretty indicative that this is genuine stag on this little German knife right here, and this has been colored. This is from the 60s or 70s. So I really don't have a good example of fake stag, and they'll take bone and they'll furrow out holes in it to make it simulate stag. So this is one from Queen Cutlery, and it's just a big piece of bone, and you have like worm grooves in here that kind of make it look like stag. That's one example right there. I don't really buy that stuff a whole lot. So here's another example. Now this is, I think, really good imitation of stag. When you look at these furrows and ridges in the stag, I think it's a really good, imitation of stag. That's why I bought it, by the way. But you can look down inside here and you can see the cut marks in these furrows, and you're not going to see that in genuine stag. See if we can zoom in. You see those cut marks, those long cut marks right there, and that's definitely fake stag. When you see that natural stag, when you look in there, you're not going to see it. You see how you don't see any cut marks in there? That's just natural. Hey, my cats are over here fighting and shaking my light. Again, here's a couple more examples. This is the stag along from Uncle Henry. This stuff was infamous for how well it imitates stag. You could see the little popcorn marks there, those little bulbs on the stag. See that? So some stag that has a lot of these little bubbles on them, we call popcorn stag, and you can see that there around. Get out! My cat is deciding, hey, this is fun to play with. But it's pretty good, pretty good imitation. Of course, this is plastic, and this is bone, which you can tell if you look at that right there. Okay, you can see the cat has invaded my space there. Charlie, what are you doing, Charlie? What are you doing? Yeah, he's like, I'm gonna eat all your stuff. He was out chasing squirrels a minute ago. I wanted to set up an array of stag just to give you an idea of the different kind of looks that it can have, and some of the different kind of colors that it can have. And before I do that, I wanted to show you this case, which is amber jigged bone. So the reason I'm showing you that is, if you look at this stag, this is genuine stag. It looks really similar, doesn't it? Not to this side, but it does to that side right there. And in the late 1700s, around 1790, knife makers started jigging bone like this because it looked like stag. And back then, just like now, stag is more expensive. So I mean, stag can add anywhere from $50 to $150 to the price of your knife, because it's just more expensive. And back in the day, they started jigging this bone. That's how we got jigged bone, because it looks a little bit more like stag. So that's the story on how jigging got started, jigging bone. But here's a bunch of different examples. You can see here, like when you see this, that's, companies. Let's see if I find a good example. When you look at this GEC, you can see this black in there. That's not normal, to find in stag. And companies are burning it in here and they dye it first. And so you get these multiple different colors in here. It looks really good, but it's not really what stag looks like. You can see it right there. Doesn't look like that. But they do that to enhance the appearance of the stag. And so when one of the first things to go as you're looking at this stag, where was I? As you're looking at the stag, is that black is kind of wearing off over time. This one right here dates to the 1976 to 1978. So that black is just starting to wear out of the knife, and you still have color left, but eventually that color will go too. I'm not sure. Yeah, here's a good example. So this is from 1991, I believe, and you see a lot of the black is off, but when you turn it over, there's none there and very little color. And what you're left with is the smooth texture of the stag here. And this will, it does look kind of like yellow. A lot of that is the dye that they put into this, but eventually this will start to brown and look like this right here. You can see it's like kind of yellow turning brown, and then it'll just go from this color as it ages to look browner and browner. That's a deeper brown, and then the older it is, the darker that stag is going to turn. Boop, 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 boop. So that's different ways that you can tell what you're looking at. This right here is pretty plain. I mean, they blackened it. There's not a whole lot of dye in here at all. I can tell that they whitened it. This is really white. So they bleach the stag and then they burn it right here. And it doesn't really look like they put any coloring in there at all. You can see it here. So that brown right there. And it just creates a lot of different looks in this stag. Another thing I wanted to mention before I close is that sometimes you'll find stag, let's see, that looks like this, okay? And so it's smooth, and you'll see a knife and it'll have genuine stag on it, and it's from an area like this which is predominantly smooth, and it'll say genuine stag, and you're like, well, that doesn't look like that. And that's because there are different parts to the antler that they can use. And so you will see some stag that's completely smooth like this. Let me see if I have an example. Actually, I think this old piece is probably the best example. You could see right here, there's nothing here. And if this was new, it would have that kind of grayish or silver look to it, but not the ridges, the furrows like this right here. And this side is almost totally absent. Now there were probably more. You can see the furrows here in right here, but this is just this dates from Civil War era, and it's just really worn. So that's what happens to it. You can see how worn this gets over time, which happens to bone too. Here's a really cool little stag. So doesn't matter what kind of stag it is. So China has the largest variation of deer species. They have 21 different species of deer in China. They're also one of the largest deer raising countries, and so they raise a lot of deer in China, just like we raise cattle, because they like to use the antler in for medicinal purposes. And so they have a large deer husbandry industry. And they've got 6 different species of red deer. So the primary difference in the species of the deer is size. And so that's about it. And when you get bigger, like you get into elk and you get into red stag, they're bigger deer, so the antlers are going to be a little tougher because they're just bigger and stronger, and they have to be strong to handle the type of abuse that those big deer put them through. And in smaller deer species, they don't weigh as much, and the antlers don't have to be as strong. So there is some variation there, but pretty much it's stronger than bone no matter what. Okay, I am really trying to not make this a long video. What about horn? Okay, horn is different than stag. Stag is true bone. Horn has an inner layer of bone, but this part that you see right here is the same material that you find in your nails and in your hair, and that's an outer covering to the bone, and it's a little different than deer stag or even bone. So bone is 100% bone. Deer antlers are bone. This is kind of a mix. Horn is kind of a mix of bone and I can't remember. I'll put it up in the editing. I can't remember the name of this substance right here, but it's a little different. Here's another shot of some more horn. Of course, horn is found on bovine type animals and is not a deer species. Deer species lose their antlers every year and regrow them, and bovines grow a horn and never let go of them. So the horn is with the animal the whole time. What else can we say? I think I covered all the bases. I really appreciate y'all. I hope you really enjoyed looking at this stag 2, little look at stag. Kind of gets your heart going. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, look at that. Oh, it's beautiful. I love stag. I love stag. Look at that. So cool. Stag is round, right? So you can see it's round. If you follow this around, it's different on the other side, right? You see that? How it's different. And that's why you won't see stag look the same on both sides. They can certainly do it. So they could find another rough piece like this and put it on the other side. But now you're talking about an awful lot of time and effort and expense to try to match up the sides. So it is common to find one side really rough like this and the other one a little smoother. In the stag, you see that right here. So really rough there. Come on, snap in. Really rough, furrowed. On the other side, not so much. That's just normal when you're buying a genuine stag. You see it here too. This little one, this is a case knife. Little furrow here. And then on the other side, it's really rough. Just kind of normal to find it that way. All right. One last thing before we close. I would buy all the stag you can get a hold of. You can see I do it. I just bought this one right here. This is a really good price on this knife. And it's stag, genuine stag. And so, I bought it. And that's because a lot of countries have already restricted the export of stag and are putting restrictions on gathering stag. And there's an effort underway worldwide to prevent people from picking up dropped antlers. So every year the deer species drop their antlers. You can go out in the woods and you can find it. That's where this antler right here comes from. Silver Stag Knives produces all of their stag from dropped antlers. So they have somebody go out, they go out themselves and they gather this antler and then use it in their knives. but you know, conservationists are trying to restrict that. And so I buy all the stag I can get. Already, it's kind of not very prevalent in knives. And so that's only going to continue. And it's only going to get more expensive. So that's just a little tip. Buy all the stag you can get a hold of. All right. Thanks for checking out the video. I tried to keep it short. A lot of information here to try to get out to y'all. And that's really more important than making a short video, I think. So thanks again for your support. I really appreciate y'all.